You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curlup, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host, Miss Ellie Garcet. What's up, Ellie girl?
How are you, Craig? I'm great.
I am doing pretty dang good, all things considered. We had an eventful last few days.
Uh-oh.
Our cow died. And
no.
Yeah. Apparently, if a cow lays downhill with her head downhill, it can't like burp or fart or let any gas out, and so all the gas builds up and they die. And so she was laying downhill, it rained, I don't think she could get up like on her own because cows aren't that nimble. And so she laid down, and next morning we're out there, and like she's made it through much worse, like snow and rain and hail, and so we didn't think to check on her. And then we woke up the next morning and she was just dead, and we were like, oh my gosh, like what the heck did we do with a dead cow? And so this whole weekend we were just like trying to figure out what to do with a 1,500-pound dead animal. So
wait, okay, so what was her name again? She had a name.
Maple.
Did Maple explode? How does that work? Like, are there that many gases?
So, I mean, honestly, she blew up. Like, she looked like a balloon. She was very circular when she was pretty skinny before. So I actually went, when she died, took a knife and poked a hole in her. And she went like a balloon.
Oh,
yeah.
She deflated.
And then she basically deflated, yeah. And it did not smell good. But, so yeah, then we were trying to figure out, like, what do you do with this dead cow on our property? And like we went through all the options, and we just figured the best way is just to bury her. And so we had to use my neighbor's tractor, and we dug a hole like 6 feet deep, tossed her in, and buried her. So at least she's still with us. But yeah, it was a crazy hullabaloo. So
I'm so sorry. I love Maple. She was so cute.
I know, she's cute, but you know, I think like so Grace, my wife, she was really good at, I thought she was going to be sad and stuff, but she was like, no, this is kind of what happens when you have a farm or when you have a homestead. Like, she wasn't emotionally like, she was sad, but she didn't cry. She wasn't like, her day wasn't ruined. It wasn't like a thing. And I was like, honestly, I was like really impressed at how Grace handled it. So I think I was more sad. I was like, okay, maybe I need to tame my feelings a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, I think I'm more sad than both of you. I might cry after this. Oh, wow. So, okay, it's my understanding, I know nothing about farming. There are some cows that are for milk and then there are some cows for like eating. Could you not have eaten Maple?
No, yeah. So Maple's a dairy cow, and so she was really skinny, like not a lot of like meat on her. And after she dies and sitting there, like you don't want it. You want like once you kill a cow to eat, like slaughter a cow, you want to like refrigerate them immediately, basically, or cut them open and get it. Yeah, but she was sitting out there, flies and all this stuff was eating at her. So yeah, it wasn't a pretty sight. But anyway. That's the big thing that we were dealing with the past few days, and now it's gone. But well, hopefully we get another cow soon.
Yeah, a Maple 2.0.
Yeah. Speaking of cash cows, we've got Miss Julie Gates on the show.
Perfect.
That was, I felt like a pretty decent transition. And she's gonna talk about all her businesses and the cash flow that she makes from these businesses, mainly real estate related in her story. And so let's come on and bring Julie on the show. This episode of Investify was brought to you by the Fi Team, a team of investor-friendly agents that service all 50 states. If you are looking to house hack, to invest, grow your portfolio, and want a true investor-friendly agent on your side, go to thefiteam.com and click Get Started, and we can't wait to have a good conversation with you. Julie Gates, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today, Julie?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor. I don't really feel like I deserve to be here. I feel like I need to work a few more years to qualify, and maybe then I could be ready. I don't know. I'm nervous. I really am nervous.
I mean, you're definitely almost overqualified, Julie. You got so much experience, and you're not related to Mr. Bill Gates, are you? Because then you wouldn't be
No,
disqualified.
that's true. I wish. My brother-in-law met him once. He said he was wonderful. But yeah, I always say Julie Gates, like Bill Gates, only poorer.
Only poor.
So
Yeah.
it's always, I do appreciate that his name is easy to remember. So, it works.
It works.
Gives me
Yeah.
a good dad
Funny.
joke there, I guess.
Yeah. So I don't think we're going to talk about Microsoft in this episode, but
No.
why don't you tell us where it all started and how you first got invested in real estate, or when you first heard about financial independence?
Yeah, I actually started in real estate investing in 2004, if you can believe that. I've been at this a long time. And my husband and I, when I say I or whatever, it's really my husband and I. It's not just me by myself, but we started, we really have always been kind of allergic to paying rent. And actually, this is crazy, but I read, my mom, when I was in grad school, she handed me, what is the guy that's very anti-debt? I always forget his name.
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey, thank you. So I read Dave Ramsey, and so I came from a family, where it was lower middle class. My mom was a nurse. My dad is a musician. He still is to this day. And so we didn't have a lot of money, but my parents were very careful. So I've always been careful with money, and that helps quite a bit in financial independence, as I'm sure you're aware. So my husband and I got out of grad school, both of us, with a good bit of debt. And so we really wanted to pay that off. And then we were starting a business in '05, and we did not want to pay rent. So we figured out that we would just buy commercial buildings and occupy them with his business, or our business that we started. So that's really where we started. We bought a multifamily, and then we started buying commercial. And I know that's not your typical entry into real estate investing, but that's how we got started. And we kind of figured it out from there. We did not know what we were doing.
So you went to business school. What did you study there?
Well, no, actually,
Or
I
MBA,
didn't go
whatever
to,
you said. Grad school.
yes, yes, I am actually a speech therapist. I am licensed right now. I live in Savannah, Georgia. I'm licensed with Georgia Secretary of State. I haven't worked as a speech therapist in a while, but if I talk too much, I am fully licensed to do that. I just want to point that out. But I was hospital based. I really enjoyed working with stroke victims, so I really enjoyed that very much. Once I had kids and we started a business, and I got hooked on being self-employed and setting my own calendar, I really haven't done a whole lot with it since. So it's a great profession, though.
Yes. So it sounds like you maybe went to school, spent a lot of money, and only used that for a couple of years. And so if you had to go back, do you think you would go to grad school again and do it that same path? Or would you maybe skip the grad school, skip the speech therapy, get right into real estate maybe in 1994 or whatever year,
Mhm.
however much earlier that would be?
That's a great question, Craig. So we're a product of our environment, right? And my parents were very, be an employee, be a good employee, go work in a hospital, have a W-2. And that's what I was raised around. My husband actually was raised very entrepreneurial, so he very much did not want to work for anyone. And so really that mindset was really ingrained in me. So it was very difficult for me to move into being self-employed. I have to tell you, I had a lot of fear associated with that. And part of it is because of my education, but it was really more how I was raised, I have to say.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So what businesses did you have when you purchased a commercial? What businesses did you already have that you were placing your business into those properties?
hmm Okay, so my husband, when I met him in college, he was doing accounting. So he has a finance background. He's excellent. I met him years later when I lived in California, and he was in medical school. So it was very shocking to both of us to meet up again in a totally different state. And we ended up in the same graduate school out in Los Angeles. So he became a doctor. We moved several times based on that. He's an ER doctor. And he became very frustrated with medicine. And we had small children. He was in the ER. He would go days without seeing our kids, and he was so frustrated. When you're a doctor, there's no other profession like it in the world. You have to work day, night, weekend. You have to be perfect. You can't legally make them pay, and if you aren't perfect, they're going to sue you. So it's a tough job. And if you get around a doctor, I really encourage you to thank them, because it is a very thankless job. And legally, they can't demand payment. They have to see you no matter what. It's the only profession. They're hoping to collect 30% of what they bill. So it's tough. So by 2005, actually 2004, we had our second son, and my husband was frustrated. He was real frustrated. He said, "I'm out. I want to start my own business." So with two small children, and I want to say this, I'm sorry if I'm digressing, but I meet a lot of people with a lot of excuses, and I know y'all have as well. And I have told so many people this, and I told a lady this the other night. "Oh, I have small children." Don't tell me that. I had small children. I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and I had a husband working full time in the ER, and he was miserable. And I told him I'd support him, and I did. And we started a business when my son Josh was, I'm going to say, 4 months old. Okay. We're talking young. So we literally got a space. We moved into it. My husband developed so he went into a medical office plan. So he does bariatrics now, but he was still working full time in the ER because we couldn't afford for him just to quit working. I mean, I had a newborn. I wasn't working that much at the time. So we started this business. I dragged the kids with me everywhere. They helped me furnish it. They helped me set up the phones, paint, you name it. I did it with a toddler and a 4-month-old, and that's the God's honest truth. And then when we opened, we didn't have money. We didn't have employees. I was the employee, and I would literally be holding a baby and checking in patients. I'd put the baby down, do something that I had to do with 2 hands, pick him back up. And I promise you, that is how we started my husband's medical practice here in Savannah. Our patients were awesome. My husband did a great job. They loved it. And within, I'd say, 8 months, he was out of the ER. He did try to go part-time, but insurance is extremely expensive for physicians, especially in the emergency room. Keep in mind, this is back when you could sue very easily. Now it's actually a lot harder, although insurance rates haven't dropped. It's ER doctor, at least here in Georgia, my understanding is that they actually have to refuse to see you for you to even be able to sue them. But anyway, at the time, it was just a lot of lawsuits, whatever. You take in a patient, you send them upstairs, they die later, you're still going to get sued, so the insurance was still very expensive. So he told his employer, Memorial Hospital here in Savannah, and he said, "Hey, I really love my business. I love what I'm doing. I'd like to go part-time." And they said, "No, sir, we are not going to pay, $80,000 a year for insurance for you to work part-time. It's stay or leave." And he left. And when he came home and told me he put in his notice, I was so scared. I know everybody deals with fear, and I promise you, I'm staring at 4. No, by then he's probably 10 months old, and a 2-year-old. And I'm like, "What? Like, you quit your job? That's our benefits. That's everything." And Don was like, "I can't take it one more day. We're going to make it work." And I'm still alive today. I have not starved yet.
Wow.
I think that's one thing that like people need to realize is you always make it work. Like if you're alive listening to this, you've made everything work to date. And so, like even if, something the medical practice didn't work out, like, his other option is like go back to an ER or another ER that would take him probably in a heartbeat, right? And so it's like usually the worst case scenario is the one you're actually in right now because you could always revert back to these times. And so always be courageous and make that extra step. And so it sounds like it took about 8 months to a year to get that medical practice established. What did that look like from an income perspective? Did he replace his income in that year or?
We're talking you were talking 2005. Okay. So I want to be honest, quick. I don't know exactly, but we did okay. Like we both came from very fiscally conservative parents, and we weren't overspenders. We actually are still in the same house we bought when we moved here. We haven't, done the big, we were always the weird doctor, that didn't spend on a lot of stuff. Like right out of residency, we had boxes for end tables in our house, and people were giving us so much crap, but we're like, we pay cash for stuff. Like we don't borrow. So I think our spending habits made a big difference. I do want to say too, I have a solid education. I get job offers even today as a speech therapist. I get job offers all the time. Just like you said, Craig, my husband could have easily gotten a different ER job. I could have easily gotten a full-time job. So because of that education background and our licensing, we knew we had options, but it would have really sucked. But there's always a way, and it just took Dawn having the chutzpah to say, we're out. We're going to make it work. And I was like, okay. I was really scared. The fear was real, but I don't take excuses from anyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And so let's talk a little bit about the next, like you said, you purchased the building that the medical practice occupied. And so your first purchase was a commercial purchase. Tell us a little bit about that. And you said you had no money. So how do you go about buying a commercial building without any money?
Okay. So our first practice, I'm sorry, I will have to back up just a little bit. Our first practice, we did rent a space because we had, my husband is making income. It's not like we're not bankable. So we rented that space. And that was after that, we started buying after that. So we did have income and we always bought them for his practice. And so we actually expanded up to about 6 offices after several years. Like Don worked really hard. He added in some, nurse practitioners and things. So we started buying commercial for ourselves, but we really were not focused on financial independence. We weren't focused on being real estate investors. All we were thinking was, we don't want to pay rent. We're just going to buy the buildings. So, over the years, we have since shrunk back down and we lease out those commercial spaces and we still own them all today. But the downturn actually hit here in Savannah between 2007 and 2009. That's when things started crashing. We had a good bit of real estate at that point, and it was very scary. We watched a lot of friends with a lot of real estate go under. And because we had always been so fiscally conservative and we really weren't buying stuff we couldn't afford, even when things were really good, we did make it through the downturn with all of our real estate. And I'm really proud to say that because I was scared then too.
Did you see commercial have as big of a hit in 2008 as the residential?
No, it was mainly residential. Everyone and their grandmother was a real estate investor. At the time when I purchased my house, for example, they offered us 110% financing. And that was very common. You could get 110, 120% financing on anything. And people were doing it. They're like, hey, we'll finance your house and your furniture, no problem. I did buy the house I live in today 100% financed. We did an 80% loan and it was 95% financed. We paid 5% down, 15% on a second mortgage, and then 80% on a primary. And the second mortgage was like for 3 years or something. But yeah, there was so much creative financing going on at the time. And it just all fell apart.
I can imagine how scary that would have been, being from someone that came from a W-2 employee mindset. You have since then left that. Your husband left that. You're now pretty much, investors. You're not doing the W-2. You have fallbacks, of course, that you could go into, but that's not where you're at that point. What I want to talk about, the conversations of what did those early conversations look like between you and your husband, where you guys were able to take your opposite spectrum beliefs and come together to make something work?
That's a great question, Allie. I will never forget. I'm old, okay? I'm just really old. But Don and I were dating, and he finished medical school, started residency across the country. So he was in South Carolina. I was still in LA. So I had to fly all the time back and forth because he was so busy. So back in these days, back in the 90s, you could walk people out to the jet, right? And watch them get on the gangplank and be like, bye, I love you. So he was sitting with me in the airport this one time. I'll never forget this. And he said, I want to work for myself. And I was like, oh, I'm still in college at this point. And he said, someday I'm going to be worth $1 million. And I remember looking at him and I was like, you are crazy. I really was so small-minded, and I regret that, but I was. And so but just having him in my world, being very financially savvy and being very free thinking and not feeling like he needed, what we kind of call security, that has helped me a lot. And I just want to encourage everyone listening, like, you need to be around people like that. You may or may not be married to one like I was, but there are so many people out there that do have the right mindset, and it's just important to be around them. And I just happened to marry one, but I've also been a rock for him as well. He struggles with different things than what I struggle with, and that's the beauty of that partnership.
Julie, where do you find people like that? Like if someone's just listening, their friends aren't thinking big, right? They're not thinking about investing in their future. Where do you go?
Okay, that's a really great question, and one I take very personally because this sounds really ridiculous, but I actually had to go find people like that because I was so lonely. I worked very hard. My kids were my party. I had this huge business I've been running. And my husband, who's the doctor, he gets all the credit. They all go, wow, he's so amazing, you know? And so real estate has really become my thing that's really been more mine. And Don knows what I'm doing, obviously, but he's really not involved in the day to day. And so as I started putting together real estate deals and we started focusing on financial independence, that's when I started buying single families and small multis. And as you probably all know, as real estate investors, it's a very lonely space. People tend to be very cagey with their information. They don't want to tell you how they find their deals, maybe, or whatever. People are very selective. And I started buying real estate. We started focusing on financial independence before that was a term to my knowledge. I had never heard of bigger pockets. That's when I made a lot of my mistakes as well. But I really had to go out and seek those groups. And that's one of the biggest keys to, that's helped in the last few years was finding there's a group called GoBundance. It's for a lot of entrepreneurs. But there are so many meetups now, podcasts like what you're listening to. Like there's so many ways nowadays to find people. But before, it was very lonely. I had no one to talk to. And, I remember going to lunch this one time with a friend and I was like, I bought another rental property. And she goes, why? And I was like, oh, never mind. Like it was very hard to find those people. So I just want to encourage you. There's different people that you're going to, be around, but it's just really important to find them in your area. So as a doctor's wife, I've been asked multiple times, oh, what do you do all day? Are you at the mall? And I want to kill him, because I'm a big part of his success and he's a big part of my success, and it sucks. When you're from the South and you have blonde hair, they think you're an idiot. And I've been fighting that for a long time.
Have you ever heard of bimbification?
Yes.
You should do that. And for those that don't know what bimbification is, my wife is like kind of obsessed with it. It's basically like everyone thinks women, or everyone talks down to women, right? Especially a blonde woman from the South, they just think you're dumb or whatever. And so basically you just act really dumb and like confirm their assertions, but really you're like outsmarting them in a better way. And so it's actually like a genius thing to do. I think it's great.
I used to go to conventions with my husband and I would snake all their business secrets. And I'd be like, how do you do that? And they would tell me everything.
Yeah.
But they were miracle done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've used that to my advantage many times. It also helps when you're younger. It helps you get out of speeding tickets. But other than that, I'm over it. But we honestly, one of the biggest deals I ever closed, I worked on for months. And the banker never spoke to my husband, nothing. Don walks in with his pen. And the guy is slobbering all over his shoes, never acknowledged me. He was just very much like, oh, Dawn, tell me about real estate. And I was like, what? And that was the day I was like, I'm going to kill somebody. Like, I'm going to get respect. And sometimes you have to go after it. But nowadays, I have no problem. I will let you know I know my stuff. And I do know my stuff. So you got to fight, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Julie, let's jump a little bit here. So we kind of get your origin story of, you're buying these commercial buildings to kind of, as your husband is expanding his office, and what it kind of sounds like and just because I know a little bit where your story ends up, is you kind of started that way, but then your husband decided to continue his doctor's practice and you really love the real estate side. So you basically created two separate businesses, your husband, doctor, and Dr. Gates, and you, this real estate entrepreneur. So when did that diversion happen?
Well, I'm sure a lot of the people listening can relate to this. We woke up one day and realized we were never going to be able to retire. Have you guys had those thoughts? I'm sure the two of you have thought those thoughts. I mean, we've been self-employed forever. We don't have 401ks, and we've put like IRAs aside, but whatever that is, what, 6,000 or 7,000 a year, it's not, what I mean? It's not going to land you, in this great beach house in Hawaii or whatever it is that you want. So we kind of realized that what we had really wasn't going to support us long term. And you work very hard. When you're self-employed, it is not like 40-hour weeks, right? So we were like, we don't want to do this forever. And it was really a miracle because my husband had a patient one day and she was talking about how she just spent 3 months in Europe. And he was like, wow, that is not free. And he said, how in the world did you get to take the kids and go to Europe for 3 months? And she said, oh, my mom paid for it. And he said, well, what does your mom do? And she said, well, she's a retired teacher. And my husband's like, what? Like none of the math was like working for him. And he said, well, my dad was very handy and they had 200 rental properties. So Don came home that day. He said, Julie, we need to buy real estate for retirement. Like we hadn't been thinking about that. We were just thinking about, giant office expansion, stuff. And that's the day I started buying single families and I haven't turned since. Yeah.
When was that? Do you remember like the year?
2016.
2016. So it took you 12 years from buying your first commercial property to realizing what actually real estate can do from a wealth building perspective. And so what happened like at what so give us what your financial picture looked like in 2016. Like roughly how much cash in the bank, like how much were you making? Could you get these loans? Because this is like more of modern times here.
Okay. The beautiful thing for Dawn and myself is by 2016, we've been self-employed forever. So you know how a lot of people they struggle with that transition as far as being bankable and also quitting their job. So we were already over that. Thank you, Lord. We didn't have to worry about that because we had years of, taxes showing self-employment. So that helped. We did have some money saved up. And so we started buying on, I don't use these loans anymore, but I guess I don't know what you call them, but they're residential loans, for investment purposes. So we were buying the properties in our personal names, and then we're doing like an 80-20 loan on it with a 15-year fixed APR. I've never done a 30-year fixed rate. I don't think I ever will. I really prefer short-term lending. So we had to qualify. They're going to look at the debt to income ratio there, which they did. We're doing well. It's not like we were, making $12,000 a year. We're doing fine. So we had the cash. So I bought several rentals. I definitely overpaid the first few times. I didn't know bigger pockets existed. Like I was very uneducated. I was reading every book I could at this point on paper because I'm really old. But I was really trying to educate myself. And then kept running out of that down payment. Like the 20% down payment was really tough to come up with. The first couple, we were okay. And then after a while, and this is back, houses were a very great price. One of my best purchases back then, I bought 3 houses for $51,000 each. I'm really proud of that. I still own them to this day. The sooner you can buy real estate, the better. But still, I still had to come up with, that 20% times 3. So, stuff like that. Like I was making great purchases. And that's when I actually met Ziana McIntyre. I didn't meet her, I'm so sorry, but I heard her speak about short-term rentals, and that got me into short-term rentals. So I did a little bit of a pivot there. And short-term rentals were very pivotal for me as far as raising cash, because you need cash to get that down payment. And then, of course, if you're going to do a short-term rental, you need cash to furnish it as well. So that was really a big part of I had several pivots, but I've always kind of been on the same path, if that makes sense.
So when you heard about the short-term rental, were you thinking about like managing other people's, or were you just thinking about changing yours from long-term to short-term to get extra cash flow to just save for the down payment quicker?
I just wanted down payments. I was looking at long-term rentals only. Again, I'm small-minded. I only knew what I knew. And this is way before they were popular, right? So I'm like, how do I make this down payment? And I heard Ziana and read her blogs and everything. And I said, oh, I have a pool house at my house. We have a pool and it has a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house right there. And I said, and my husband we live on acreage. He doesn't want neighbors. And I said, babe, can I put the pool house on Airbnb? And he was like, what? No, what? And I was like, but I need the cash. Like so I had him listen to her. But that's what started. I know not everyone's in this situation, but I had a fully furnished house sitting there doing nothing. So I ripped out the front door because it gets a good bit of water. So we put in a new door with a keyless entry lock. And that was pretty much my only investment. And I was like, no one's going to rent this sucker. And everyone rented it. It went crazy. And my first short-term rental bought my second bought my third, and on and on.
Wow. And so that's how you get started. So like curious as to like because you're house hacking, right? I mean, you're luxury house hacking. This is this is textbook luxury house hacking.
I see you, Craig. I didn't know it existed, and I'm still house hacking today.
Yeah. So are we.
Yeah.
But what are like I guess what did you get on I mean what was your mortgage payment on your house that you lived in and then what were you able to get in for like what were you able to get for that extra unit and so like now you were saving how much in living expenses?
Yeah, that short-term rental, it started bringing in about 5,000 a month, and that was huge for me. And
5,000 a
so,
month out of your
mhm,
backyard? What?
yes, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was just shocked how much money. Of course, there were none. And again, I'm in Savannah, but I'm not in Savannah. I live rurally, so I was like, no one's going to stay out here, in the suburbs. And sure enough, they did. And so, yeah, I took at the time. This I know it sounds terrible, but we had a house that we were using for storage. We had built quite a large wholesale business, a totally different business that I haven't talked about. But anyway, the wholesale business required a lot of storage. So we had a house and we had used it for storage for years. It's just a single family home that was near our property that we bought to protect our property because we didn't want, bad neighbors or whatever. And so by then the wholesale business, we had kind of converted it to where we were shipping directly from the supplier. So we didn't need all the storage and we didn't know what to do with it. We didn't want tenants there. So I took the money from the short-term rental and I put it into that second house and it needed a pretty heavy lift. It didn't have water at the time. I mean, it was really in rough shape. And that became my second short-term rental. And then those two just started to really cash flow. So that was kind of, anyway, I kept buying long-term rentals. And then I also started buying furnished rentals at that point as well.
Nice. So what does what does your portfolio look like now? And then I want to talk about Airbnb and how at least the rest of the country, maybe not in the suburbs of Savannah, Georgia, have experienced uh, a decrease in short-term activity overall. I want to know how that's impacted you. But first, what does your portfolio look like overall now?
Yeah, well, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to give you some context. So, my son Josh, my little one, he started a squirrel rescue in 2011, and it was amazing. We had the best squirrels everywhere. It was so fun, and he named them crazy names. It was really great. So, when you buy real estate, you put it in an LLC. And so I started buying, I had been buying real estate and continued to buy real estate. And so I had all these crazy squirrel names for my LLCs. Well, with my long-term rentals, I got kind of frustrated with my property manager. And by then I was also renting my own short-term rentals. And so I started a management company. I said, I'm sick of paying all these fees. So I started a management company only for my own entertainment. And I named it Sid Was Here. And Sid was the first squirrel that Josh ever saved. We loved her. She was wonderful. So I started a management company amidst all these other things I have going on. Again, no excuses. I've done it. And so I really enjoyed property management. Well, then other people started asking me to manage their short-term rentals because Savannah is a very strong short-term rental market. It was bizarre because I was at the closing table. One of the properties I purchased, the sellers were elderly and they said, what are you going to do with the property? I said, oh, I'm going to furnish it. It's going to be what I call a long short, which is 30 days or more. I'd seen a big need for these 30-day stays. And they said, we have 5 short-term rentals in Savannah. And I said, oh, no kidding. So I loved them, started buying their portfolio because they were ready to get rid of it. And then they told me, they said, we'll sell you the rest, but you have to manage for us. And I said, oh, I had never thought of managing for anyone. So Sid Was Here all of a sudden became, a company it was just really my project on the side. So I am very involved in short-term rentals. I do know the market very well nationally and locally. And so I just wanted to caveat that I'm now a short-term rental property manager. That's probably what I do the most, is the management side. So that's a big part of my job. Did I answer the question? I'm sorry, Allie, I might have pressed there.
Yeah. So how many properties do you manage and how many properties do you have now?
I don't know exactly what I manage. I would literally have to like count down a screen because it changes. But I manage primarily here in the Savannah, Georgia area. We do a lot with the 30 nights plus, and that was a big part of my investment strategy that helped me grow. And then I do a lot of short-term rentals. We have licenses in Savannah and Tybee Island and the areas. And so my personal portfolio is small multifamilies, single families, commercial, and then I do own one hotel. So I bought that last year. So that's been a big growing opportunity. I really like, that there's a lot going on in real estate and you can always find something new and get a new challenge. And I really enjoy the technology side of short-term rentals because you have to really stay on your game. And I'm always, working on that. So
Yeah. So how has the short-term rental market in Savannah been, since talk to us more about like just the overall short-term rental nationally and in your local area?
Savannah is similar to the rest of the nation in that it's getting very crowded. The short-term rentals are what I call the hot chick on the corner, and everyone wants the hot chick on the corner. And it's definitely gotten a lot more competitive. When I had my pool house going, I had so many people want to rent for months at a time. Well, I don't want people there months at a time. It's my backyard. What if I don't like them? And I kept saying no. And so back in 2017 was when I really made that pivot towards what I call the long shorts. And I had pages of waiting lists. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to find these month-to-month rentals. And so there's competition here. There's competition everywhere. The thing Savannah and Tybee have going on is that they have ordinances in place, and they have for many years. So if you have a licensed short-term rental, it's actually very valuable. You can sell it for probably 20 to 30% more than the house next door. And then you are protected to some degree. But there is a lot of competition. One of the biggest things I've seen this past year was, previously when you did a short-term rental, you could furnish it from Facebook Marketplace and you'd still make your $5,000-$6,000 a month. But now there's so much competition. You actually need to invest a lot more on the front end and make it beautiful. It needs to be designer ready. We have a lot of very judgy guests nowadays. And so I had a lot of owners this past year that were like, I'm not making the money I was. And I'm like, we need to update your decor. That's a big part of the issue. So it's been tough.
We hope this episode is inspiring you to take action. If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent or an agent who wants to join an investor-friendly team, just hit me up on Instagram at @TheFi because we are growing our team in Denver, Seattle, San Diego, and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, but also adding to our network in all 50 states. And if you didn't already know this, the Fi team provides a super supportive environment with one-on-one coaching, accountability, and ongoing training to help develop kick-ass, rock star, investor-friendly real estate agents. So hit me up on Instagram at @TheFi, shoot me a DM, and we'll set up a time to chat. Can't wait to chat with you. Yeah, Julie, that's kind of like my biggest, my biggest like bone to pick with short-term rental people is that like, is it an investment, right? Like, of course it's an investment and you get higher returns. But you got to keep upgrading the decor. You have to keep upgrading this. And I've got friends, right, that are putting $100,000 just into the decorations of a house. And I'm just like, you're going to have to replace that in 2 years. Like, are you even investing, or are you just like keeping up with the Joneses from your street that, I know is in Savannah? Like, do you know, like, can you talk a little bit about that? And like, is there a risk here with short-term rentals? Like, is it as good as people think it is?
Anything you do is a risk, and anything you do, especially when you're spending this kind of money, you need to be educated, and you don't just go, oh, my friend bought one, so I'll buy one. No. So yes, you can spend okay, I want to start with this. The nicer the house is, the more money it's going to bring in, unless you're just an idiot and you have cell phone photography or something. But we're assuming everyone's using good photography. The nicer it is, the more money it's going to bring. People are very visual. But you are going to have to replace some things, but you're not going to have to replace others. You need to be smart when you buy the furniture. You don't buy a Target couch that comes in a box and one guy can lift up. That's a light couch that's made of particle board and it's going to break. And yeah, you're going to have to replace it. I buy solid furniture. There's a company, I don't know if y'all have it out west, but I'm just giving them a plug. I have nothing to gain. I use them. It's called Rooms to Go. It's very regular furniture for regular people, and families buy it. So it's very sturdy. And they also finance it with 0 APR. Like, your cash price is the same as if you finance for 5 years. They don't really care. It's still $1,000 couch. Either way, you're paying $1,000. So I go in there and I'm like, I want the sturdiest stuff with the best fabric. So I really try to buy furniture that's going to last 10 to 15 years. Couches, maybe not. Your mattresses absolutely should last. Your beds, your dressers, your linens are not going to last. But you know what we're really good at with property management? We're really good at insurance claims. If the guest damages your linens, we're going to try to get that replaced for the owner for free. So are you recycling your linens? I just had a guy do a $48,000 booking in one of my houses. He stayed 11 months. And he spent almost $50,000, and I had to replace every bedspread and every towel and every sheet that was in that house. Did I pay for that? No, I did not. I did an insurance claim because he trashed it. Not really trashed it, but he was really dirty. So by the time he left, it was unusable for the next guest. I put in a claim. I got my money back. I now have new linens in the same property. So if that makes sense, something you might have to replace, but not if you're smart about it going in, you won't. At least not for 5 or 15 years.
And are those insurance claims done through Airbnb, or is there a separate insurance provider that you use?
You should always have an insurance policy for every guest. I am a property manager, so I do things very high level. I have people on multiple sites, not just Airbnb. So it does not, if I'm managing for you, you're on Google, you're on Wednesday, you're on StayFi, you're on not StayFi, that's a Wi-Fi, but anyway, you're on multiple sites, and I have a policy for you no matter what site the guest stays through. So it's important to have that policy in place, and you got to know what you're doing to make that happen. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just on Airbnb and you just have the Airbnb insurance. But how good are you at getting claims through? You have to really know the rules to make that happen. So I have someone that specializes in that works for me, and she deserves that. So it's important. You need to be on multiple platforms because there's a lot of competition, and you've got to have an insurance policy. It doesn't matter where it comes from, but you've got to have an insurance policy.
Okay, love that. And you get the insurance policy just through insurance agent, or?
Yeah, it depends on the platform. I am actually licensed through one company. It's called CSA Generali. They work through VRBO. I have a license through there. But also there's actually another one that I use as well. It's called Safely. So I use, for anyone staying longer than 21 nights, I write them a policy. I'm always trying to save money for the guest, but provide the homeowner with that coverage, if that makes sense. So we actually work with 3 different providers. It's super complicated. But as we always have a place to file a claim, always.
As the short-term rental expert, someone just starting out here, like what would you recommend, like the top 3 things they do to ensure like the most bookings or like the most success as a short-term rental?
My best advice for anyone wanting to get into short-term rentals is that don't buy anything that's not going to work as a rental, period. Like you just have to be so careful in any market. And I was doing this before we had this big Airbnb boom, but I always really looked at a 2% rule. If it was 1%, if I could get 1% of the purchase price in the long-term rent, I would think about it as a long-term rental. But if I could get 2% as a furnished rental, I would definitely do that because that's much higher cash flow. I'm a cash flow investor. It's only been recently that we've seen this massive appreciation in Savannah, but we've always been able to cash flow, and you can still cash flow. So really, I want to just say for any newbie, any person with 3 short-term rentals, you've got to buy right. Don't buy top dollar. Here in Savannah, I'm an agent and I work with clients buying short-term rentals, and I'm still going to try to get them the best deal because if I can get them 20, 30,000 off on that purchase price, that's huge. It's hard to do with a licensed, property, but if you're looking in the outskirts and you can still do it legally, you can get a bit of a discount and still make very similar income. So always be willing to pivot, know your price point, know your numbers. There are so many sites where you can know exactly what that property is going to earn as a short-term rental or as a long-term rental. You need to know both.
And what do you think are those sites? I know I've heard of AirDNA, Awning, Rabu. Are those all sites that you use? And is there anyone that you like more in particular?
I love AirDNA. That's what we primarily use now is AirDNA. Data.Rabu is good, but they've kind of shut down a lot of their free stuff. Back when everything was free, boy, I was on there all the time. But there are a lot of different sites, and you don't have to pay for a whole lot.
What do you use as far as pricing, making sure that the pricing is up to date? Price Labs?
Yes, as a management perspective, yes, I use Price Labs. There are 3 different pricing software: Beyond Pricing, Price Labs, and Wheelhouse, and they're all excellent. I have used 2 of those 3. The one I personally use is Price Labs, but I don't think you can go wrong, honestly. It's so important to have dynamic pricing.
Yeah. I recently got into Price Labs. I should have done it years ago. And my goodness, is it so complicated. What a learning curve for Price Labs.
It is, but they also have a ton of free training, and you need to go to those. Go to those webinars, put the time in. And I've learned so much doing that, asking questions. Every time I'm at a conference, if I see a Price Labs booth or whatever, man, I'm over there with my laptop going, show me this, show me that. I love education.
Wait, there's a learning curve with price labs. I always thought you just like went on there, set your prices, and kind of let them do their thing. Am I missing something?
I would fire you as my property manager tomorrow.
That's why I'm not a property manager. I manage my one property, but that's what I used to do. So like I managed it. Like I had Airbnbs back in 2017, 2018, and it was so easy. Like I should show you the pictures. You would laugh, Julie. And maybe I
I
did
was
show you the
doing
pictures.
it
Oh
then.
my, what's
I
that?
know. I was doing it then too. It was nothing.
Yeah, and I would just put it on Price Labs, and Price Labs would do their thing. It was like pretty passive on Price Labs, and it was good. And so now I actually have to go into Price Labs often. I don't think because we've got one in our basement now that it has not done well renting out, and we're just like, why is it not doing well?
Well, you can sit around and read your hands, or you can get in there. But yeah, and even my properties that aren't doing well. Okay, I want to know. Of course, I've got to be liable to the owner as well. But if there's a hole, we want to fill that hole. And sometimes I don't know. Like we're always judging with pricing every single day. We're messing with it, even though we do have a set it and forget it plan. But it's a tough market out there.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it's good advice. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying this short-term rental business is super passive. Just throw the pricing software up there and let it do its thing. But really, it's not the case. You need to really be in there almost daily, it sounds like. So um, that's good. Julia, any other advice you'd give to people managing short-term rentals? Um, just how to boost sales, how to make it more efficient?
It really comes down to the software. I when you start out, you tend to just put the house on Airbnb and then you kind of figure out how to connect it with VRBO. So now you're on two, so that's cool. But there are some really good tools that aren't that expensive, maybe $10, $15 per door per month. And once you pay for one of those property management softwares, now you have a direct booking site that comes with it. And now you have automated messaging and all kind of different things. They're starting to add AI. Like I really am a big believer in automation. In fact, Craig, I talk to Craig fairly frequently, and it cracks me up because I get your voice in my head where you're like, too much automation is a bad thing. Like you told me that like 20 times. And I know you're right. And so I need people like you to pull me back because I tend to over automate and then lose a bit of that personal, perspective. But I'm also very busy and it helps me. So take my advice and Craig's and add automation, but not too much. So there are a lot of capabilities that you can get for really not that much money when you start looking at the capabilities. That software is great.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on, what Julie's saying about automation. And automation can be really good in certain instances, but depending on where you're at, right? Like if, for example, if we're real estate agents, actually everyone on this call is a real estate on this podcast is a real estate agent, and when you're talking with a client for the first time and you're not quite at the stage of like you can automate them yet, you don't want to automate them, right? Like because there's an inverse correlation between automation and conversion. And so people want to like put people on these drip campaigns to just automate, automate, automate. But like how many times people aren't dumb. They know automations exist. And when you are being automated, you don't answer. I can't tell you how many text messages I get a day about people wanting to buy my property. Clearly, I know they're sending out thousands of messages and I'm one of 1,000. I'm not answering that, right? And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And so that's why it's super crucial to have some sort of personalization when you're in that early stage of just converting a lead. And then later on, like after you close them, then we'll put them on a drip campaign. That's like, hey, just checking in. How's it going? And then they answer and, the rapport is there. So then they don't even realize that it is a drip because it doesn't really feel like one because they think we're just texting them. So, yeah, I'll get off my soapbox on automation and conversion. But yeah, I think, just realizing the most important stuff should not be automated.
I agree. I just tend to go 100 miles an hour and I lose people. I've lost probably more than I've made in this business in leads, if that makes sense. And this for property management, agent, all of it. So I guess probably maybe my struggle is just organization, but automation helps me keep it together. But anyway, I've really appreciated you putting that in my head, Craig, because I'm a little too much over the top with automation.
For sure. I think it's really easy to get there. And that's like the new buzzword these days. Um, and Allie, we totally forgot something.
We
You know what that
forgot
was?
to dig into the For
real
real deal.
Julie, we were way too caught up in your story, but usually when you do your first real estate deal, we like to dive into your first deal and talk all about the numbers and stuff like that. And I think you mentioned you purchased your first property back in 2016. So let's talk about your 2016 property. And do you still own that property today?
I do. The first single family home I ever bought.
Let's talk about that, and let's just talk about like the journey of that, because I'm sure there's been multiple iterations of it. And so, if you can remember, back in 2016, what did you buy that property for? How much did you put down? What were you renting it for? Give us all the details.
Okay. I live in the suburbs of Savannah. It's called Richmond Hill. And so I wanted, I was very nervous, right? We always think, oh, I'll buy a rental property and I want it to feel safe. It has to be someplace I would live too. I had all these really silly beliefs that I'm sure many of your viewers can relate to. So I said, well, I'll buy right here in my community because it's wonderful and it's safe and it is a great community. So I don't regret that, but it's also expensive. So, and I say these numbers and people are going to roll their eyes, but the first single family home I bought, it was 159 and I did get 10,000 off. It was 169. And so I was, it was my first one. I was very nervous. I did not know anything about bigger pockets. I want to say how uneducated I was. So I was going around with this agent and she was awesome. And so we had several showings that day and she said, this one has a tenant inside right now and they want to stay. And I said, oh, okay. And so we pulled up and we have 2 military bases in Savannah. So there's this guy in the front yard and he's clearly a soldier, he's very fit and he's clearly a soldier. And my agent and I both got out of the car and he goes, not today. And we're both like, what? And of course I'm terrified of tenants at this point. And he said, you're not showing this house today. Get out. Like he was like, oh, it was scary. And I'm telling you, I had my hand on the handle. I was ready to get back in the agent's car and leave, right? I was like, okay, bye, see you. And my agent's like, no, sir, we have a showing. Excuse me. Like she walks around him. And as he's yelling at us, this lady came out and she said, stop it, stop it. Like she really handled this guy very well. I was really like, the whole thing just scared the mess out of me. I can't even tell you. So I looked at the house. It's actually in great shape. She told me, what she was paying in rent. She really wanted to stay. She said, I'm a single mom. That's my boyfriend. He's not here. And like I said, I was just very impressed with how she handled this situation, which I found very scary. And almost more than the house, I really liked the tenant. And I know this is not like a newbie, strategy, but I've bought my first rental with a tenant inside and I kept her and she's still there today.
Wow.
Wait, what? She's been there for like 7+ years?
She's been there way longer than I've owned the house. She's been there and I talked to the seller and they said, she's great. We'd love to keep her. And, she pays on time, blah, blah, blah. And so that actually helped me get a discount on the property because I said, well, 169 is a little rich for me. Would you accept 159 and I'll keep your tenant who you care about? And they said, okay, fine. So I thought I was killing it, getting $10,000 off of the sales price right at the time for me. You should see what I do now. It's awful. But anyway, so my math on this is so embarrassing. Don't tell anyone. But my math was, I'm doing an 80-20 loan, right? And so I said, okay, 15-year mortgage, 80-20 loan. Will her rent cover my mortgage? And the answer was yes. So I was like, we have a deal. Let's buy the house. Yeah. And then, of course, I had to have a property manager. And then, of course, teeny things broke, nothing major. But very quickly did I realize that I was paying out of pocket so that this lovely could live there. But anyway.
Not gonna lie, I think that's how a lot of people that are uneducated get started in real estate, and they does rent cover the mortgage because that's all you see. That's I mean that is 80% of it, but there is a very very large 20% there that will take you down.
I made that mistake once, okay, but again, she's still there. The house has probably doubled in value, maybe not quite that much, but close. And I have raised the rent every year, and like we're doing okay now. And I learned a ton. And so I actually was just at a meetup. I host a meetup here in Savannah, and I had this mom not a mom, I'm sorry. She's a newbie. She was scared to buy. And I said, I'm giving you permission right now. Go lose money because you're going to lose money on your first deal. I don't know anybody that didn't lose money on their first deal. I can't say I lost money, but I was losing money every month. So I just give everyone out there permission. Go lose money. Figure it out. You're going to learn the most on that first deal. I certainly did.
Oh, I'd love to talk about, you mentioned that you kept this tenant. This tenant, I presume, has been happy. Uh, how have you nurtured that relationship while also increasing the rent? How do you propose the rent increases? What's your strategy there?
I know market rents and I make sure she knows market rents. And I have put my foot down about it. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I have bought many, many properties with people inside by now, and I've evicted some of them. But she didn't love it because she was used to the old way, which is you get in, you keep the rent the same way for 5 or 6 years. And I said, look, I can't afford to do that. You know, now I've created my own management company because I don't want to pay someone to do this. It is a little bit, it's a give and take. I would never tell you we're best friends. She does, she threw attitude once at my staff, and I'm very intolerant of that. I actually guard my people that work with me. They're like my family. And so I said, if you don't have to go up on rent, you can leave, but you cannot treat anyone in this way. You can't curse. Like, I'm very opposed to things like that. So I've had to train her. It's important to train your tenants. I'm sure you guys have all talked about that many times, but yet every year she kind of knows, like every year it's going up. And I try to be careful about it. It's usually, 25 to $50. I think one year I did go 100 because rent had just gone up so much. But she knows she's still about $300-400 under, compared to what her neighbors are paying if they have a new move in. And I just make sure she knows that.
And what are you getting like over the mortgage now versus what you were before?
Mortgage is around 1,100 a month, and she's probably at, I think she's around 1,500.
Okay. So this isn't like I mean, this property is not making you uber rich here, right? This is more of a learning, right? And I think that's kind of what you were getting at was like just go out there and lose money. And you didn't lose a whole lot of money. You probably even gained money if you were to sell this property, you would be in the green here. But where you lost money was not knowing what a great deal looked like and you in all that time, right, that bought it, right? And I think there's just that's just straight up learning, right? You'll never be more efficient on deal one than you would be on deal six.
I'm going to quote a very smart man here, David Green. Most of your money in real estate is made in appreciation. And that's not my focus, but I do appreciate it. The property has doubled in value, almost is worth, around 300,000 right now. And the rent, I am cash flowing fairly well on it every month, and I'm gonna pay that mortgage off. I'm gonna keep it forever, and it's gonna be go to my children. Like I'm proud of it. Am I at the Ritz Carlton every weekend because of this one property? No, absolutely not. But that's why you have to have several. You've got to stack them. One rental property you're not going to retire on. And I was aware of that.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's kind of like, it just reminds me of my first house hack, right? Where because and a little bit was I didn't know what was going on. Like when I was first house hacking, the only thing to do was to buy a duplex, triplex, or quad, right? That was the only way to house hack. And so I bought a duplex, and it was like it was a newer, like recently redone duplex, up down, but like man, I could have cash flowed way better if I had bought a single family and rented by the room, but that just didn't. No one was doing that. It didn't exist, and so, or I mean, it did, but no one was talking about it, and so once that became a little bit more popularized, then the whole like split in the basements became more popular. I'm like, oh well, I could make like $1,000 to $2,000 a month on these properties rather than this cute little couple hundred. But Julie, just like yourself, my property has almost doubled. Actually, I think it's more than doubled since I bought it. And again, it's appreciation that makes you rich.
Everything. You've just
Yeah.
got to start. You have to start today. You don't wait for 10 years from now. And I've had people tell me, oh, I have young kids. I can't start yet. I'm like, oh, you're going to wait 15 years and then my real estate? No, you have to take that first step.
I want to quickly talk about this hotel. You like glossed over buying a hotel. Did you buy a franchise or are you like renting it short term? What does that look like?
The hotel has been tough. We just got out of year one. I want to say this. Any furnished rental you buy, please be aware, you're not going to make money year one. I know this. The money in furnished rentals is made year two, year three, year four, and then beyond. So it's a very interesting project. I'm proud of it, but I'm still struggling to cash flow on it. It's in Wisconsin, so it's quite far away. That's been tough. It's in a rural area, so we have a hard time getting help. That's been tough. It's just if I lived close by, this sucker would be doing really well. I'd have a lot more control of it. But having a property like this and being 100% in need of someone else to do everything and then bill me for it has been tough. So it's been a really big learning curve. We bought it. It needed some rehab, so it took a little bit to get going. But it's been really great. I'm very proud of it. I've learned a ton. It's a small boutique hotel. It's an 18 unit, and it's not on a lake, but it's like right by a lake, if that makes sense. You just walk around the corner and the lake's right there. And I'm really proud of it. And we actually have it up for sale right now. I have a partner, and we both enjoyed the project, but we're just both being pulled so heavily in different directions that we're going to let it go and hope that, the next investor can really take it the rest of the way. I had a plan. I wanted to hold it for 3 to 5 years and then tokenize it. I really like a lot of the cryptocurrencies right now and how I think tokenization is really the next step for real estate. Instead of these crazy closings with a lawyer and all this, you just tokenize that sucker and you can buy and sell the tokens very easily. And it's starting to be done everywhere. I've been educating myself on the process. So I was hoping to have this huge cash flowing hotel and tokenize it and really kind of, I don't know, make my name on that. But it's probably not going to work out that way. We'll see. If we can't get our number, we're going to keep it. And if we can, we're going to take it and put the money elsewhere. But I've just really kind of chosen for myself to focus more on my local market because I am in such a great market. But the hotel has been fantastic. I went into it going, oh, I've been doing short-term rentals for years. I know the hotel industry. I knew 30-40%, but it was definitely a heavier lift than I expected. But that's okay. I've learned a ton. Anything you do in this business is going to make you a better investor. So I am proud of that. But I wish I could say I've made millions of dollars on it, and I can't say that. But it's been a really great project.
I love that. So what's next for you? What's your next adventure that you're working on?
That's a good question. I live in the 5-year plan. That's like what I do at work, is I'm always in the future. I really believe very strongly in the Savannah market. I am an agent here. And so I've really this year, I guess in the last 12 months, and Craig's actually helped me with this a good bit, but I'm running sort of a turnkey operation in Savannah now because my background is really property management and real estate investing. I've been doing that a long time. And now that I've added in the real estate sales, we have a lot of out-of-state money coming into Savannah. Long Beach is becoming the number 2 port in the U.S. Savannah is becoming the number 1 port in the U.S. We have so much industry flying in because of the port, and the Southeast is really a great place to be for tax advantages. So as I've seen, the changes here, that's why I've really kind of zoned back in on Savannah. And so I'll take people. They don't have to use me for management by any means, but if they're looking for that, I can take them through the sale and the rehab and the management. And how can I help them rehab? I run a property management business, and we keep our properties at a very high level. We have a lot of support providers, people like that can do it. I have several GCs that I work with. So any of my clients, they buy a property, I'm going to recommend, these are these 7 guys that I work with. They can find their own. So we'll help them get it rehabbed. Then we also have a decorator. She'll get it decorated, and then we can take the management. So it's been a big service for our out-of-state buyers that I can do that. So I'm really excited about the growth of my business, and it's a big part of what I do anyway. I've been investing for a long time. In fact, I had some calls today, and one guy was doing a 1031 exchange, and one guy wanted to do some rapid depreciation. I was like, yeah, I gave him some tips, and they were like, I've never had an agent that really understood what I was talking about. And I said, no, I'm an investor first. And I'm very proud to say that. So I'm really building this business to work with other investors as well. And, for the management, we are investors managing for other investors. We understand they're going after the return. And so I'm really proud of the direction of Sid was here and the Savannah market in general. It's really great.
That's awesome.
Love it. Yeah, and I love to see you growing as a real estate agent too. I think it's great. And I love that you're kind of like having more of a turnkey business. Lead generation is one of the hardest things that you can do in business. And so if you're able to charge the same customer more times and have the dollar per customer higher, that's a great way to increase profitability, right? And offer a better service.
The thing I'm the most proud of, what I love about property management, is the long-term relationship. I really, Greg, I hope to be your friend for many years, right? Not just, 6 months or whatever. Like, I love the long-term. So I have a lot of owners now that they keep buying through me, and we keep managing, and I have their trust. That's a big deal in real estate. Who you work with has to be trustworthy. They have to be proven. They have to know their stuff. So I'm really proud of those relationships. I have to say, I'm happy for the onesie twosies as well. That's fine. No, nothing wrong with that. But I've seen so many people now buy one and then they buy three more and then three more and then two more. And I'm their easy button, and everyone needs that in their life. And I'm very proud to be that for my clients.
100% love that. Yeah. So, I mean, if you need a go-to agent in the Savannah market and property manager, you know who we know who to call, Miss Julie Gates. But Julie, I think we're about heading into the final part of the show, which we lovingly call our final four. Before we get there, any parting words of wisdom for the listeners?
No excuses. And if you think of excuses, you're going to call me and I'm going to call bullcrap on that. So I just really can't say that enough. I promise you guys, it sounds so great. Oh, hotel or la la la. I have worked so hard for everything I have. My husband too. No one gave us a dime. I promise you that. And I just quit making excuses and get that first deal, get that second deal, figure it out. This is so random and it doesn't matter. I have nothing to gain telling you this, but I have a thing on my website. Sid was here. I did this presentation, how to cash flow on your cat. Okay. There's literally something in your life that you can cash flow on, and you need to go figure that out and get the cash and buy real estate with it. And I have personally done that, and everyone can as well.
I've got 2 cats. How do we cash flow them? I've been banging my head against the wall thinking about this, not going to lie.
If you watch my presentation, you will see a cat. I'm trying to think his name is Cody, and he makes $5.2 million a year.
There's Instagram famous.
There's also, okay, I'm gonna tell you this. There's a site I'm obsessed with, and if someone can help me with it, like it's called Airbnb, okay? And it's not Airbnb, it's Airbnb, and you can cash flow on your freaking toilet. Like if you're in a great spot and they hold festivals, you can rent your toilet out during Mardi Gras or whatever. Like I'm so obsessed with Airbnb. You can cash flow on your toilet. Did everyone hear me say that? Is that going on social media? Like figure it out. There's a million things you can do to make money on the side. The shared economy is here. Freaking use it. I do. That's how I have the real estate I have, is because of the shared economy. And I made the sacrifice to let people in my backyard. And here we are today.
Yeah, it's amazing. Airbnb. I'm gonna look that one up.
Airbnb, please, someone help me recreate it. It went out of business and I need to bring it back. So I'm trying to put the word out there, but if you watch my presentation, I'll show you everything. Please.
Where can people find your presentation?
SidWasHere.com on my media page.
Okay, on the media page, SidWasHere.com. Awesome.
Nope.
All right.
Cash flow on the cat, baby.
Yeah, Allie, you know what time it is next?
It's time for the
Final
four.
So,
starting with question number 1. Julie, what are you reading right now?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to tell you, okay, I read everything on Audible. I do not actually read books anymore. And my best friend got me into this, and I am so excited, and I am planning to eat at this restaurant, but it's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh, yeah, that's on my list.
Okay, it's about a restaurant in New York, and they went unreasonable with their hospitality, and they're doing incredibly well. And, we're all in the customer service business, so I'm always looking to up my game, but it's very inspiring what these guys have done.
Love it. Julie, what is the best piece of advice you ever received?
I have to say, I really appreciate my parents being so fiscally conservative and not saying, don't get into credit card debt, don't spend money you don't have. I appreciate that so much. I use that advice to this day. And, I do really well, and I am still on a spending freeze half of the year. Why? Because I want to invest it. So I really actually appreciate the fiscal conservative, however you say that.
Fiscally conservative. Gotcha.
What's your why?
I really enjoy learning, and I really love business, and I'm not an idea person. Okay. My husband is more that, and I meet idea people all the time, and they'll be like, oh, I have all these ideas, but I never do anything about it. Well, I have no ideas, but if you give me yours, I'll make a business out of it. And I've done it over and over, and I'm really proud of that. Okay. That's a skill that not everybody has. But if you can get me to buy into your idea, like Airbnb, just saying, I'll make it happen. And I do. And I'm really proud of that. And so, really my husband's always been that visionary. But when I say, I'm with you, let's go, let's sign a lease, let's buy furniture, let's da-da-da, like I can take it from zero to there, but I rarely have the original idea myself.
Yeah.
No, the integrator.
That's cool.
That's good. Okay, Julie, this is kind of a weird question, but they're always kind of weird. What does the word, like when someone texts you just okay, how do you feel? What does that mean to you?
It means they're acknowledging what I said. I don't take it negative.
Okay. I'm kind of like a softie when it comes to text, and if someone just sends me a one-word text, I'm like, they're mad at me. Like,
Oh.
I did something, you know? And so I like overthink the like, okay, especially if there's no like smiley face or anything attached to it. If you do okay, smiley face, we're good. But if it's like,
If
okay,
there's
I'm
a
like,
period.
she hates me. I'm not texting her anymore.
I
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to remember this, Craig. I do not want to piss you off, so this is
Yeah.
crucial information. For myself, I am always driving and texting and calling and doing things at the same time, and so I appreciate when I just know they're good. You know what I mean? Like I every time I stop, I go through my phone and I try to respond. Like I'm always like going so fast, so a short text is usually not a bad thing. I'm an over texter though. I'll voice text a paragraph and it won't make any sense at all.
Oh yeah, because there's no like punctuation or anything. You have to say the comma when you do the voice to text.
Right. And I'll try to say that, but it'll like literally, I'll say, get a greenhouse and it'll go, Tammy wants nachos. I don't even know where my phone comes up with the crap that it says. So I'm that person that texts you a lot of stuff. And so my staff that works with me, they have kind of learned to kind of figure it out or just ask for clarification. But I'm always at 100 miles an hour and I make a lot of mistakes because I do that.
For sure. Allie, what about you? How do you feel about the okay?
So I've gotten used to it. And I feel like this is such a 90s, like if you were born in the 90s, I feel like everyone is scared of the letters OK or K, or just like the thumbs up. You're like, oh, you only gave me a thumbs up. I guess you don't really like my idea, So it depends. It depends on who's sending it. That way I'm like, okay, they're probably in a rush. Okay, got it. Or if it's someone that I know has more time and all they said was okay, then I'm like, there might be something deeper here.
Yeah, I guess the context matters too.
Can I add to the conversation, Craig? It's interesting that you're bringing up this word. I love this word. I'm a huge traveler and I speak several languages. I look dumb, but I'm a get around or whatever. And okay works in any language in any country in the world. You can say that to people and they know what you're talking about. So keep that in mind. Okay is one of the most practical words you can have in your vocabulary because they'll be like, and you'll be like, okay. And then that's like to me, that is like the one international any language word is the word okay. So thought for the day.
Nice.
That and
Yeah.
toilet.
Please help me get Airbnb. I want to have this just to tell my friends and have them be like, you do what for a living? I help people rent out their toilets. It's great. Like,
Oh gosh, that's so funny.
I love being the weird
Yeah.
chick at the party where they're all like, yeah, she has some interesting stories.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Okay, Julie, so where can people find out more about you? You mentioned sidwashere.com. Anywhere else?
Sid Was Here is my management company. My real estate business is Team 912. I actually have a podcast about investing in Savannah. If anyone's interested, it's called Cashflow Savannah podcast. So I'm sure you can find that. It's fairly new as we're doing this recording, but I would love for you to, if you're interested in the Savannah market in general, or just hearing about real estate investing, but it's mainly focused on Savannah. But yeah, Sid Was Here is absolutely the best. If you want to, I have a lot of information there about real estate investing. And then if you're interested in learning more about the Savannah market, you can reach out. We'd love to talk to you anytime. We have a great team.
Awesome. Julie,
Awesome.
thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and great to know a little bit more about your story, especially the beginning. So thanks again, Julie. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Julie.
And that was Miss Julie Gates. Allie, what did you think about Julie?
That was so cool. And we could have gone deeper into any of her businesses because her and her husband, they are busy doing the work. I love the mentality of the no excuses. And now if I ever want to purchase in Savannah, I know exactly who to go to.
Oh, 100%. I've thought about purchasing in Savannah just because the prices are cheaper. It's a nice market. Julie's definitely your gal. She knows a lot about Savannah, a lot about short-term rentals. And she's just been doing it for so long, And I knew
Yeah.
that Julie goes 110% at whatever she tries at. And yeah, like you said, like the no excuses thing, I think it's so easy for us. We don't even realize we're making excuses. I make excuses every
Yeah.
day. Ellie, I'm sure you do too. And honestly, Julie probably does too, because we don't even realize like, why didn't you work out this morning? Were you tired, right? Not drinking enough water last night? You go drink. Like, those are all excuses. Like, just get up and go work out. Who cares if it's not as good of a workout? Just get into that routine. And so I think like that no excuse mentality is huge, and it's hard to live by.
Yeah. No, I also love that she is it's such an implementer, and that goes hand in hand with the no excuse mentality too. We're like, hey, I might not be the best with ideas, but you give me an idea and I will act on it. That is exactly the type of like oomph and traction that you need in order to succeed. And look at her success. She's doing great.
Yeah, she is just absolutely crushing it. Her and her husband. And I love how she and her husband are like truly a team. I see this quite a bit where it almost feels like a husband and wife are competition, where it's like the wife is trying to outmake the husband or the husband is trying to outmake the wife, whatever, like this fight. Like, I don't know. It seems almost a little bit competitive. And I just think that's such a toxic way to live, where it's like, no, like clearly at first her husband, who was a doctor, was supporting her entrepreneurial endeavors as a real estate person. And now, I mean, that table could have flipped. Like, Julie makes good money. She potentially could be supporting her doctor husband, but either way, they both make a good income, which is now, she mentioned it briefly. She lives on acreage, right? She's probably got a nice home in Savannah. She, like they're not really worried about money anymore.
Yeah, and it did flip for a while when he said, you know what, I quit, I can't. So she
Mhm.
did then support him. So it's all about teamwork. Choosing your partner, is so important, both in like partnerships as well as your life partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you've made it this far, we just want to thank you so much for listening to the whole episode. And please, if you would, leave us a rating and review on iTunes and all of the places that you can leave those rating and reviews. And give us a follow on Instagram. I'm the Fi Guy. Allie is Allie the Agent. And we'll see you all next time.
See ya.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.